Imagine a world where the street outside your door is not a place of movement and commerce, but a slow, breathing wound. You step into the morning and the air is thick, not with fresh rain or distant smoke, but with the sour rot of waste and sickness. The ground beneath you is slick with yesterday's refuse. The sounds are wrong, not engines or distant music, but coughing, rats scraping in the dark, and the low bell of a cart carrying bodies. In this era, cleanliness is not a habit. It is a luxury almost no one can afford. You would press cloth to your face, not to block dust, but to keep out the invisible enemy people believe rides on poisoned air. Above ground, life continues in narrow alleys where the stench never leaves. Meanwhile, death waits in doorways, patient and ordinary. This is 1349, when Europe began rotting alive, and survival was not a choice but the stuff of nightmares. In this era, a typical day begins before sunrise because darkness is not peaceful here. You would wake in a room shared with too many bodies, the warmth of breath and sweat trapped beneath low beams. The bedding is straw, damp from human heat, alive with fleas. Your skin itches before you even stand. People do not understand bacteria or viruses, but they know something is wrong in the air, something creeping like a siege army beyond the walls. They call it miasma, a corruption of atmosphere, and they believe smell itself can kill. You would dress quickly, pulling on a rough linen undershirt because linen is thought to protect the body by drawing impurities away. Not by choice, but by necessity, clothing becomes a barrier against filth. The wealthy might change garments more often, might burn incense or wash hands with scented water, but peasants wear the same layers until fabric stiffens with grime. Class is written in smell. Aristocrats retreat behind stone and tapestry, while the poor live pressed together like kindling. By the time you step outside, the city is already awake. Streets are narrow, built for feet in carts, not for sanitation. Waste is everywhere. Chamber pots are emptied from windows. Animal dung mixes with human refuse. You would watch it flow in sluggish streams toward gutters that do not truly drain. Above ground, pigs roam freely, eating what they can. Dogs tear at scraps. Rats thrive, unseen but constant, the true citizens of plague years. Meanwhile, people attempt protection with the tools they have. You would see herbs tied in bundles, carried close to the nose. Rosemary, sage, wormwood. These are not decorations, they are desperate shields. Physicians advise bloodletting, believing sickness is excess humors that must be released. A man may sit pale and trembling while a barber surgeon opens a vein, letting dark blood spill into a bowl. The act feels logical to them, even merciful, yet it weakens the body further. But the true horror is that no one knows the enemy is already inside. Daily routines collapse into vigilance. Markets still operate, but with fear hanging between stalls. Bread is touched cautiously. Coins pass from hand to hand like cursed objects. Priests walk among crowds, urging repentance, because many believe plague is divine punishment. Processions fill the streets, barefoot penitents whipping their backs raw, thinking pain might buy survival. Not by choice, but by belief, suffering becomes currency. In the countryside, peasants cannot flee work. Fields must be planted even as neighbors vanish. The aristocracy can isolate in manors, closing gates, posting guards, pretending stone can stop disease. Yet luxury does not guarantee safety. Silk cannot repel fleas. Gold cannot purchase immunity. In this era, death is democratic in its reach, though the poor feel it first and hardest. By mid-morning, the city smells of heat rising from refuse. The summer air thickens and every breath feels heavy. You would hear rumors spreading faster than carts. A household struck overnight, a child dead by noon, a street marked with crosses. The plague moves like biological warfare, an invisible army slipping through cracks. People blame foreigners, beggars, Jews, anyone who can be made into an explanation. Violence becomes another symptom. Yet this is only part of the unraveling. As the day continues, the systemic horror reveals itself. Cities were never built for this scale of death. Infrastructure collapses under the weight of bodies. In 1349, Europe's towns become siege camps against an unseen foe, and the walls are failing. There are no sewers in most places, only open channels where waste collects. Water sources are contaminated. Wells become shared cups of infection. Above ground, occupations emerge that feel like the stuff of nightmares. Gong farmers descend into cesspits beneath garderobes, scraping human waste into buckets for removal. Their work is essential, yet it is performed in darkness thick with ammonia and decay. They breathe poison daily. Their skin is burned by contact. They are paid because no one else will do it. Meanwhile, plague doctors, when they appear, are wrapped in heavy cloaks, faces hidden behind beaked masks stuffed with herbs. They look like omens, not healers. Their treatments are crude, lancing buboes, applying poultices, prescribing prayers. By the time mass death arrives, legal frameworks fail. Ordinances demand cleanliness, but enforcement is impossible when half the population is sick or dying. Courts close, officials flee, gravediggers cannot keep pace. In some cities, pits are dug so large they swallow hundreds at once. Chroniclers speak of streets lined with corpses, carts rolling through dawn to collect what families can no longer bury. Death statistics are staggering. In many regions, a third of the population vanishes. In some towns, half. Entire villages are wiped out, left silent except for animals wandering through abandoned homes. The plague does not only kill individuals, it collapses systems. Farms go untilled, trade breaks, food shortages follow, compounding suffering. Malnutrition weakens immune defenses, creating a feedback loop of vulnerability. The siege tightens. Luxury and squalor exist side by side. In one quarter, nobles still dine from silver, servants trembling as they pour wine. In another, families share a single crust of bread beside a dying parent. Intention and outcome diverge cruelly. People burn aromatic woods to cleanse air, but smoke only irritates lungs already strained. They crowd into churches seeking salvation, but closeness spreads infection. Every instinct becomes dangerous. Meanwhile, pests flourish. Rats move through refuse, fleas biting from body to body, the true carriers of catastrophe. Lice infest clothing, flies swarm wounds. Urban waste becomes an ecosystem of disease. The city itself feels alive, but sick, like a body running a fever. Yet the most intimate horror is what happens within skin and blood. In this era, hygiene is primitive. Soap exists, but bathing is rare, sometimes feared as opening pores to miasma. People wipe with rags, moss, leaves, whatever is available. Not by choice, but by scarcity, the body becomes a battlefield without armor. By the time symptoms appear, they are unmistakable. Fever strikes like fire, headaches split the skull, buboes swell in groin and armpit, painful knots of lymph infection, darkening as tissue dies. The smell of gangrene joins the city's constant stench. Some victims cough blood, lungs filling with fluid, spreading plague through breath. Others slip into delirium, skin mottled with hemorrhages, black spots blooming like bruised ink. Treatments are brutal. Physicians apply leeches, drain swellings, smear concoctions of vinegar and herbs. Families place warm compresses, whisper prayers, hold hands until the last breath. Reinfection is common because fleas remain, clothing remains, rats remain. Immune exhaustion sets in. Survivors are left weakened, scarred, haunted. Above ground, daily life continues because it must. Children fetch water, bakers knead dough with cracked hands, mothers clean sores with cloth already stained. Every act is done under siege. The invisible enemy is everywhere, not by choice, not by choice, not by choice. Yet this is only part of what 1349 reveals. It shows the thinness of civilization when sanitation fails, when knowledge is limited, when fear becomes policy. People did not live in filth because they loved it. They lived in it because they had no alternative, because the tools of modern hygiene did not exist. because survival itself was the work of every hour. In the final reflection, the horror shifts into something else. We must look at them not with disgust, but with awe. These were not ignorant caricatures. They were human beings trapped in conditions we can barely imagine, fighting a siege with candles against darkness. They endured streets reeking of death, not as spectacle, but as ordinary reality. They buried children, nursed strangers, prayed, worked, survived. Modern privilege allows us clean water, medicine, waste systems that keep invisible enemies at bay. In this era, they had none of that. They faced plague with herbs and faith, with trembling hands and stubborn dignity. Their world was harsh, but their resilience was vast. Civilization is not only marble and law, it is the fragile act of caring for one another amid chaos. And in 1349, as Europe began rotting alive, survival was not cleanliness, but courage, human dignity holding its breath in the darkest air.